I was wondering if we could start off with, so that we can sort of get our bearings, and because this might impact your funding if Chairman Branch gets his way, what do we mean, what are we talking about when we talk about student success? Is it graduating in a certain amount of time? Is it getting a job? Is it, if you're in a community college, transferring to a four-year university? I was wondering if we could just sort of go down the line and each give your perspective from your institution and the legislative perspective of what student success is.
For South Texas College, it is all of those and many, many more. Just to get a student to make the decision to attend college and to enter our doors, that is a tremendous success. And to ultimately graduate them and get them into the workforce or transfer to the university, those are fairly traditional measures of success. But for so many of our students who are financially challenged, working, have families, first in their family to have ever gone to college, to just get to college each and every day and to be able to buy a textbook. And if they can overcome those challenges, we consider those successes.
Chairman Branch.
Thank you, Reeve. Actually, and thank you all for, I apologize for not being here earlier, and to Senator Seliger, I'm sure he is grateful to have the full floor. Senators know how to filibuster. We don't have filibuster in the House. Actually, this was the plot. I saw that Evan Smith was going to be interviewing us at the first panel, and I wanted the Johnny Manziel of Austin journalism, Reeve Hamilton. I wanted to be seen with Reeve, and so we planned the fog this morning in Austin so we can come late. Student success for me, you know, in one sense, my sense is from reading some of our Texas history in higher education that at one time student success was getting people to think about going to higher ed, you know, education beyond the high school. And that John Connally was very focused on having more Texans enter higher education. And in many ways, we have, our funding model still represents that. That in one of our major closing the gaps initiatives is matriculations, enrollments, is entering, advancing your knowledge beyond that of the high school. And so, but for me, I think we've gone beyond that. So now student success is not just getting some additional hours and starting higher education beyond the high school, but whether that's getting a certificate or getting an associate's degree or getting a bachelor's or going on to graduate studies, those are the success. Obviously, the success is the transformation in learning, and the taking on of knowledge, the being able to communicate knowledge and being participating in creating knowledge. Obviously, those are all but the default or metric we used to measure that is it's a crude instrument, but it's either a certificate or an associate's degree or some sort of credential that says you have that our faculty at our institution tells the world that this student has taken on this body of knowledge and has a certain level of competence. And so we look at completions now, and I hope more and more we'll look at various aspects of beyond just enrollment, which now is really the incentive. I mean, if a school wants to get more money, which I'm told administrators occasionally watch that, that they know that by growing or not or avoiding shrinking, that they will maintain their budgets or expand their budgets. And I hope that someday that we have more and more focused, not just because it's the right thing to do and the statistics are right and they don't want to be embarrassed. They want the best for the students, but that they also see that they'll be able to have more resources, and so therefore we're going to push toward completions. And I'm really hopeful. I think the Commissioner of Higher Education in Texas has been a great spokesperson and prophet of telling people if we don't increase our completions, Texas will not be a great state in the future. So for me, however you define completions and taking on more knowledge, there's a lot of subparts in that I suppose we'll get into, but for me that's, to make it simple for our citizenry, we need to start people in higher education, they need to take on knowledge, and then we need to end. I mean, every good story has a beginning, middle, and an end, and for us, a lot of our stories don't have a very good ending. or they don't have an ending. And we're sort of out there looking to see what happened to these folks that started but didn't complete.
President Traub?
Well, certainly I would agree with the chairman that graduation, completion of a curriculum is the most important or the most obvious metric of student success. But I would add another component, and it's one that we're really drilling down on now at Texas State University, is that they not only graduate, but they graduate equipped to go to the next step, whatever that is for them. For most of them, it's going to mean a job. It's going to mean a career. For some of them, it will be professional school or graduate school. So we don't just want to graduate our students, as important as that is, and as obvious as that is as a metric, but we really want to prepare them for life and prepare them for what comes after college.
President Skubnik.
Well, I think the definitions of success would vary from institution to institution. A two-year institution would have probably different metrics than a four-year school. I think it also depends on who you're talking to. Our state legislators and the coordinating board might have certain priorities. I think a parent has a very definite idea of what success is. Did they graduate? Did they get a job? And do I still have some money? But I would agree with what everybody else has said, that there are certain commonalities. You want your students to progress in a timely fashion, have a high retention rate, graduate, and be prepared to pursue whatever career objectives they had in mind. But as the chairman also alluded to, there's a transformative process during the educational experience that's very important. I've talked to students who don't have jobs and consider their time at Texas Tech a success because they grew in many different ways. And ultimately, they know they'll be prepared to assume whatever position they may want.
Well, Chairman Branch, since you weren't here for the previous panel, if we could do a little bit on the legislative agenda and how it relates to student success. Obviously, you have filed a bill, House Bill 25, that would tie, I think, 25% of schools' appropriations to student success measures. Mm-hmm. And why are we looking to do that? What's wrong with the current system?
Well, that was the bill number we got, so we decided to. Well, I guess for me, we passed House Bill 9. Senate and House worked together with Senator Zaffarini and Senator Seliger's colleagues, and with a lot of help from the governor's office. Actually, in the budget negotiations 2 years ago, House Bill 9 became sort of a critical measure that the governor helped call for and said that we needed to pass. So there's a lot of credit to go around for that. And so the idea of having the coordinating board start and make the recommendation and have community colleges and the four-year colleges get together over the interim and talk about what the metrics should be and then build that into the base budget. So all that work's been done. And for me, I was participating in the interim process and holding hearings and also attending some conferences around the country. And the governor had, as in my role, had appointed me to Education Commission of the States and the Southern Regional Education Board. These are two good organizations that you can go and learn what other states are doing. Some of these groups you go to, you don't really get a good sense of what's going on. These ones you actually do, and I was paying attention that there was about 17 states that were doing outcomes funding, that were changing their formula funding methods to focus more on outcomes. One person said, "Oh, you have outcomes funding in Texas. It's just the outcome you look for is 12th day matriculation to the 12th day of classes. That's the outcome that you're incentivizing." And so I guess paying attention to that, I thought, well, our efforts for moving toward at least 10%, while important, and were noticed around the country. At these meetings, they'd all go, "Oh, Texas is on the move," and I go, "Yeah." I had a little bit to do with that, but other states have gone further. The one that a lot of people talk about, Tennessee, is sort of the most notable. Depending on how you look at it, 100% of their formula funding is based on various outcomes, and there's they break it out and allow not a one-size-fits-all model, but they allow different institutions to be held accountable to their metrics that are, in some instances, unique to their institution. And there's a whole discussion about that. But I guess for me, 25% seemed like, looking at some states that have moved in that direction, it seems like it's a fair allocation of these other areas. I hope this is a process where we phase toward equal weighting of different metrics. Because if you were starting over today, you wouldn't just incentivize enrollment. I mean, it seems to me if you were starting today, you'd at least say, okay, in a very simple fashion, we want people to start, and we want them to learn in the middle and have quality, and then finish and have a credential that evidences the quality ready. You don't want to have a situation like we have in K-12 where a lot of people think a high school diploma doesn't necessarily mean you're workforce ready or you're college ready. That means that the credential now lacks some credibility. So in higher ed, you want to have the degree mean something and have the quality, but you also have to have the quantity so that when capital, worldwide capital, or worldwide decision makers, businesses are looking to locate, are they saying, hey, can I get an educated workforce in Central Texas or around College Station or other parts of Texas? And so to me, if we were starting today, someone might say, well, you ought to have 50% on when they start, 50% on when they end, and that's how we ought to fund it. I think that's probably a little primitive, but I think it's primitive to have everything weighted on the front end. So my point was to sort of say, okay, we've begun the process. Hopefully we'll go to 10% this year with this budget. We'll see how that works. We'll have a chance to learn. And if we can move to a higher percentage level, say 25%, for the next budget, that's something we can all work toward, and everyone has noticed that that's the direction we're headed. And some can say, well, we're moving too slow, and some can say, well, we'll be moving too fast, and some will say we ought to stop, places on the way, and we'll have a robust debate about that. But that was the point of filing the bill, is to keep the process going.
Well, President Skuvenak, how nervous does this change in formula funding make a university like Texas Tech?
Well, I think people should realize that it's inherent in institutions of higher education to be accountable, to be efficient and responsible. So this isn't inconsistent with what we try to do on a daily basis. Now, when you look at some of the particulars of what may be monitored and outcomes-based funding, we'll pay attention to that, graduation rates, retention, degrees in certain areas. And so it might prompt us to be more proactive in certain ways, but it's not causing a great deal of angst. And here's a small example. I was just visiting yesterday with some members of the board regarding a proposal to increase the number of beds on campus. And we had done a study of how graduation rates were affected by students who live on campus as opposed to those who did not, how it affected their engagement in the university. And I mentioned that having more beds on campus might position us to perform better in terms, if there were an outcomes-based component to the formula. So I don't think it's something that's causing a lot of alarm.
Well, President Trath, a lot of this is about sort of changing behavior, but what is the current behavior? What do you do at Texas State University to get more students to complete, for example?
Well, we do a lot of things because we're very proud of the fact that we have a very high retention rate, high graduation rate, and we're one of the few big schools that has basically the same retention rate and graduation rate across all ethnicities. So there isn't just one thing that works. You have to do a lot of different things. But we have a new initiative this year that we think is really going to be profoundly important. It's a new freshman advising center, and it's both academic advising and career advising that starts the summer before the freshman year. When they come in for that first orientation, it begins. And we've married those two things in a way that's really pretty unusual. You know, a lot of universities start career counseling with seniors. Well, that's a little late, because one of the things that we've learned is that the earlier a student starts to think about a career, the more highly correlated to retention and graduation is that student. talk about success initiatives. Starting to think about a career the summer before your freshman year is profoundly important. So this new advising center is one-stop shopping for freshmen. We're the 33rd largest public institution in the country, and yet our freshmen think we're a small school. And it's partly because we have this one-stop shopping. They can come in, it's in the middle of campus, they can ask any question they want, they can get tutoring, they can get mentoring, they get career advising, academic advising, and although we're at the front end of this initiative, we really think that it is going to contribute to even higher rates of success.
And how much does, for initiatives of that sort, how much does funding play a role? Obviously, it doesn't sound like there's going to be a lot more funding for institutions going into this session, but if there are further cuts or if you don't get much more, how much can you really grow an initiative like that?
Well, nothing is without a price tag, that's for sure. And although we use a lot of technology in this initiative for the students, e-portfolios, for example, and evaluations are all done via technology. It's called the PACE Center, and P stands for personalized. And it is one-on-one advising for students in a private office, which we think is really, really important at a big school. So certainly budget cuts play a role here. I mean, you can't expand academic or career advisors if you don't have the dollars. We make strategic decisions. We made a strategic decision to orient a lot of our funding toward this PACE Center because we think it's going to be successful.
Well, and President Reed, President Tauth was talking about freshmen and sort of initiatives to help freshmen. One thing that struck me when I visited South Texas College, I think it was maybe a year or 2 years ago, was sort of not only the changing definition of what a student was. You guys seem to be involved with, you're very heavily involved in early college, high school efforts down there, which you're dealing with high school students. You also are part of the Accelerate Texas program, which deals with adult basic education. When we're talking about student success, we're not just talking about sort of the traditional student in a four-year university, right? We're talking about where on the, how early is sort of the right time to be getting students to think about this, and how late is too late, if ever?
Well, I think it all is rather prenatal. You need to start planning before conception to how you're going to send your child to college and help that child be prepared. We're very focused on dual enrollment because the data is beginning to show that students who have had a strong dual enrollment experience are really outperforming students at the university who did not participate in any dual enrollment. And we only have the data at this point with the University of Texas Pan American. But to put this in perspective, we have almost 12,000 dual enrollment students. We have 15 early college high schools. We have waived tuition, and we have had 67,000 students participate in dual enrollment. Now, when these students go on to the university, whether it be A&M or UT, they do very well. And the data from our study with the University of Texas Pan American is the students who've had dual enrollment, their graduation rates are 25% higher than students who began at the university with no dual enrollment. Their cumulative grade point average is 1 point higher. Retention is 18% higher. So the data is beginning to confirm that getting this head start is making a difference in the number of students who go to college and how successful they are in college and how many ultimately graduate and how many go to work. So I certainly appreciate the Senator's comments earlier and his support of dual enrollment.
And what about those adults that sort of missed the pathway to success on the first go-round and are trying to get back into it?
Those adults. I brought some data on those adults. And there are a lot of them in this state. We're talking about students who, for whatever reason, did not complete high school. And in Texas, we have a wonderful program, a dropout recovery program, where under the age of 25, you can return to the high school and complete. And we have many successful initiatives, but we still have 17.1 million adults in Texas over 25 without a high school diploma. And we have an adult basic ed program that currently is administered by TEA, and they serve 100,000 students a year. Now that's only 3% of the 17 million. Now let's look at outcomes, performance. Of those 100,000 students, 7,586 earned a GED. Now, that's not a real good performance benchmark. It's our hope that at the next legislative session, this issue will be addressed. I know TEA has already acknowledged that perhaps adult basic ed is not best served in that agency. Where it goes, I don't think anybody knows at this point, but the fact that we have so many adults in this state that cannot compete in the workforce is really derelict in our responsibility. I think we owe it to all Texans to give them the opportunity for a second and even a third chance, if necessary, to earn at least a high school diploma, begin a community college, get some skill sets so they can provide for themselves and their family. So that's my narration on adult basic ed.
Chairman Branch, do you know where adult basic ed should go?
Well, we had a, I don't know, I was interested in the President's prenatal comments because as a parent of 5, I've heard a lot about the pre-K cohort, but now maybe we'll have a prenatal lobby in education. At adult basic education, there was a lively discussion last session about whether it should go point A or point B, and I guess it ended up staying at point A, which is TEA. Representative Margot, who's not going to be coming back, was not reelected from El Paso, was very passionate about it moving to the coordinating board. And I heard that. I think we heard that bill in our committee. And in my view, I think the reality was there was sort of a third-party provider that works closely with the two groups out of Houston, and there's a lot of the testimony was there was a lot of collaboration between the coordinating board and TEA and the third-party provider, and. To me, the optics were with Representative Margot that when you're dealing with adults, for me, it seemed like it would be better run by the coordinating board because we're dealing with adults and showing respect to them and using a system that manages adults in higher education, even though they're having to learn more basic skills. Seemed like a more humane and dignified way to treat Texans who just haven't taken on board this knowledge and these skills. And so I thought it would be a good thing if the coordinating board sort of managed it, because at a minimum it was sending the right signal to our adults in the state that we're managing it. I think the reality was that everyone was working close together, and either side, I think most agencies I've found don't like to give up turf, so there may have been a little bit of that there, but my sense, the more important issue is, are we going to do enough, and are we using best practices? Do we have enough resources? Can we reach more adults? How can we find better ways to bring them back in and get them the skills and make sure they're having as much success as they can in the workforce?
And you have another bill that deals with sort of pathways. Is it HB 30? Is that the transfer bill?
Yes.
And then what does that do, and why is that important?
Well, to me, when you look at the numbers in higher education, 1.5 million students, and over half of those are in the community college system. So when you just look at the numbers, it's important in higher ed to make sure we have the really high-skilled, innovative platforms, to make sure we have the cutting-edge ideas in science, and we're a leader in innovation. That's really important for the future of the state, but it's also important that we bring along the rest of us that aren't so brilliant, and so that we all have a chance to participate. And so you got to look at our community college system, our 50 systems, 80 campuses, where approximately 800,000 students are. And to me, we got to make sure that if a student enrolls at one of these campuses and takes on the number of hours that they're supposed to and has a plan, that when they want to transfer, they want to go on and get a 4-year degree as opposed to enter the workforce, that they don't have a lot of confusion and a lot of gamesmanship where they thought they were going to get credit, but now they only get credit as an elective as opposed to a credit for the core or a credit for their major. So a lot of students, we have a lot of anecdotal evidence that people have been told you're going to get credit, but in fact you're getting credit for elective. Well, someone doesn't need more elective credit. Usually they need credit toward the core, and if they thought they were taking a class that had the same learning objectives as maybe at the school they were transferring to, that they would get credit for that course. On the other hand, we have 4-year institutions that are saying, hey, we got to maintain quality, and I completely support that, understand that. And so we do have the process right now where the coordinating board is sort of working on about 12 different majors where we're doing the tuning. They call this tuning, where you sit down with leaders from community college or and the 4-year and you say, okay, is your course meet the same objectives that we have to have in order to take a kid to the next level, a student to the next level? And so they start aligning the curriculum and the learning objectives so that these courses have the rigor and therefore they can get the credit. And so I think we're starting that process. I hope we can supercharge that effort and move that along. This bill is meant to say, hey, we don't need to have a lot of lack of clarity in that process. We need to have it as simple as possible for students and for parents and for counselors, so that there's not a miscommunication of what will be credit worthy and what won't. And then we need to make sure we're not having, we have a lot of community colleges where you can get a certain associate's degree and take 60 hours in one part of the state, and another part of the state you got to take 70-something hours in order to get the same degree. Now that may be a good thing. On the other hand, if it's unnecessary, if those extra 12 to 15 hours are really not necessary, then let's not be spending taxpayer money on that, whether that's scholarships or contact hour formula money. Let's be more efficient with the program. So there's several elements of that bill that we're going to try and make the process of moving people from 2-year institutions that want to go on to 4-year institutions, that process will be smoother, and we have articulation agreements that people can know if I start at community college and I take a certain set of courses or I get my associate's degree, that I'm going to be able to transfer to a 4-year institution in the state of Texas.
Well, and for the presence of the 2 4-year universities here, I thought I'd ask you about another one of Chairman Branch's initiatives, since you're both sort of on different ends of the Tier 1 effort. The Texas Tech sort of is now eligible for the National Research University Fund, and Texas State is now an emerging research institution, so that puts them in the hunt for the Tier 1 race. We've put a lot of money into growing research at our universities, and this is sort of playing off sort of a debate that was had last session, where is research complementary or sort of in an adversary relationship to student success efforts?
Go ahead, Denise.
Well, I think we're both going to say the same thing, but we'll maybe say it a little
We
bit.
can try it at the same time.
We both need to jump on that one.
Yeah, I think that the notion that there's a dichotomy between teaching and research is just absolutely false. And I say that based on, I was a department chair for 7 years at a school that had a big undergraduate program. And as a department chair, you know, you're doing a lot of evaluation. I mean, you're evaluating people for promotion and tenure. You're also in the classroom watching people teach. And I can say absolutely that the faculty who were engaged in research, and what that means is that they are on the cutting edge of their discipline, that, you know, every day they're in there, they're reading journal articles, they're in the lab, whatever they're doing. Those were the best teachers. Now, they may not have been the best performers, but they were certainly the best undergraduate teachers because they went in every day knowing the most recent knowledge in their field, and they went in with a passion. Because if you're doing research in an area, you are passionate about that. I know as a teacher, the classes that I taught a lot of different things, but the classes that I loved the most were the classes that were in my research area. So I think the notion that there's this dichotomy and that undergraduate students don't benefit from research is just absolutely false in my experience.
I couldn't agree more. And I think people need to keep in mind that the learning experiences that occur outside the classroom sometimes are the most important part of the student's experience. And often those are undergraduate research experiences. We have a Center for Undergraduate Research that provides students a chance to be engaged with faculty, not just in the sciences, but in the humanities, to the honors college and such. And that really is an attractive recruiting element for really good students. So the payout from NRUF, the National Research University Fund, obviously is devoted to supporting research initiatives, but some of those funds will be used for undergraduate research experiences. And I think what people need to realize is when you have a research-intensive institution, it adds a certain value and prestige to the degree. And so research complements the educational experience in a very natural way.
Well, and what about the students that are not ready for the research experience yet? You often hear about how if you end up in remedial education when you get to the university, it sort of significantly impacts your chances of getting out at all if in a reasonable amount of time. What can you do with students who show up to the university sort of unprepared for university work? I mean, how much can you really expect to do there?
I would go back to the comment Denise made earlier about the advising experience begins the first day, and it's related not only to degree plans but career development. And you can provide so much academic support to the student's experience to address those issues. We have this entity at Tech called SOAR, Student Operations Academic Retention. It provides services such as supplemental learning. So courses that have a WDF rate of greater than 30% are provided mentors where those students can get support. It's kind of a peer environment where they get extra help. There's a learning strategies course they can take. There are all kinds of opportunities you can provide students that aren't necessarily doing undergraduate research that can make their experience much more successful.
President Trout, anything to add to that?
Well, I mean, we don't accept a student unless we think that student can graduate from Texas State. So, first of all, I mean, that's the beginning. But we also recognize the fact that they come in with all kinds of preparations. And, half of our students come in as new freshmen, but fully half of them come in as transfers. So they're all at different places. And I would agree. We have probably 35 different kinds of interventions that we do with students, some of which are initiated by the student, many of which are initiated by faculty and staff, that get in there and again, hopefully get in there early to get a student who maybe is veering off a lot or a little and get them back on the right path. I mean, I think that's the real secret, is getting in there, intervening as soon as you know a student needs it, not waiting.
Dr. Reed, maybe I should get you in on this conversation since you're dealing with students from all walks of life and all sorts of backgrounds. How do you make sure the student is ready to go on to the university if that's what they want to do after they leave South Texas College?
Well, by virtue of the fact that they have completed the course of study, they have earned their grades. They are prepared to go to the university, and they're prepared to go to any university, not just in this state, but anywhere. We're very proud of how successful our graduates are. our challenge is not how well they do when they leave us. Our challenge is getting them prepared to be successful while at our institution. Being an open admissions institution, if you have a high school diploma or a GED, you are eligible to attend any community college in the state. And students come to us with all kinds of challenges, all kinds of levels of preparation, all kinds of levels of talent. And I'm not sure we always are able to define college readiness, where I can look at you, give you a test, and anoint you, Reeve, and say, you are college ready. And you are not. And so what we're going to,
I stipulate to that.
and so what we are going to do with you is we're going to require you to take 3 levels of developmental math. And the odds are maybe 1 out of 10 that you will finish all 3 developmental courses and go on and take a college level math class. So what do you decide? I'm out of here. This isn't for me. If this is what I have to do, I'm not going to continue in college. And when you don't complete the community college, what other options do you have? So our big challenge is to help students select that major, determine whether they can be successful in college level work or not, provide all the support that we can provide them, and hold their hand and nurture them and get them to that commencement ceremony.
Well, by way of closing, since we started the first question going this way, I was wondering if we could work our way back. And I was wondering, what do you think is the greatest barrier to student success? Is it tuition being too high? Is it some policies at the legislature? I was wondering if everyone could just sort of throw out what they think is the greatest barrier, and then we'll move over to Q&A.
This is a bit risky to say this, but I think if you would look at students who don't get a degree, it often is reflective of the preparation they brought to the institution. Now, there's some work ethic involved in this. I do believe that we'll be more successful in higher ed if we have a very healthy K through 12 system. And I'm by no means putting all the emphasis there, but I think universities, it's incumbent upon them to be engaged with K through 12 institutions. And there's a lot of outreach that goes on between a university and the local independent school districts. And I think we're in this together, that we have to be starting at the elementary levels and making sure those students have the skills that give them a decent chance to be successful.
If I look at 18-year-olds now, and like I said, we have lots of different kinds of students, but if you look at that group from 18 to 22, the traditionally aged, and today, I think that, I don't know if this is the biggest barrier, but I do think these students need structure, they need hand-holding in a sense, they need face-to-face engagement, and they need engagement, and engagement with people. I mean, one of the things that we're seeing is that students, the best predictor isn't the grade point average or even what the preparation they came in with, it's engagement. If we can get them attached to one person at the university, a faculty member, a staff member, somebody, and they really can engage with that person, they've got a much better chance of graduating.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's a fair question, but I think a better question, Johnny Football, is that what are the, with various groups, it's sort of like, and I'm out of the commercial real estate world as a legal practitioner, and so if you get too macro in real estate, it's meaningless because you need to know submarkets in a particular area, and a certain submarket may be very hot, and another one may have a lot of vacancy. And to me, if you go into certain areas, our Generation Texas effort of teaching people you know, how easy it is to matriculate into a community college, and that there's financial aid available, and that it's really not that difficult, and there's customer service to show them and help them start the process. With a certain community of Texans, a pretty large cohort, that's really important. To me, that's the barrier, and that's really the effort of our Generation Texas to change the culture and say you can also go get some higher education and ultimately help your family even more, the statistics show. It's not to say that there's a whole other discussion here, as you know, that workforce ready is a really good thing, and there's really high need for people with just certificates right now. And so I'm not saying, I don't think anyone here is saying is the only path to success in life is going and getting a college degree. There's many ways to success in life with other credentials like an associate's degree or certificate. But I think if with that group, it's just helping them get started and showing them. I think with another group, it's financial aid. With other groups, it's engagement, certain types of students, and making it relevant and meaningful. And with the students in the developmental ed program, it's getting better ways to say, hey, we're just going to focus on your problem. Your problem is algebra or fractions. We're not going to make you stop and get no credit while we do this. We're going to supercharge the effort for 2 months on fractions. And then we're going to release you back into taking 4 credit classes because that's the one area where you stumbled. We have had a system that's sort of overly broad and puts them in 15 weeks of getting no credit in any subject, and shockingly they get discouraged and drop out. So I think it's better for us to focus on these various groups. And in the high end, we got to challenge the high end student. We got to challenge them to stay in the state and go to one of these great universities and not leave the state because they think they can get a better education at University of Oklahoma or Arkansas or Ole Miss. And so to me, we have to break down our students and say, what is the barrier with these different sub-markets of our students, and then meet the challenge in each one of those cohorts.
President Reed, you want to wrap us up here?
Well, there's an expression, but I can't quite get it all in order. Something like, we met the enemy and it was us. I'm kind of thinking as I'm listening that maybe the biggest barrier to student success really is ourselves in terms of the design of our institutions, some of the bureaucracies that we have in place, some of the structures we have in place that may be curtailing the level of student engagement. And you were referencing targeting each group. Well, we're finding that it's each individual needs a special plan. One's a single mom with 3 kids. She needs a certain plan to facilitate success. Another young man he races in, he takes his classes, and he's gone. He needs a different plan for success. So I just think the bureaucracy and the structure in our higher ed institutions really does put in place barriers to the success of students.
Anyone want to respond to that over from the universities?
Well, I mean, that's exactly what we're trying to break down with our PACE Center, is personalized academic and career exploration.
I think that I would say we're reaching out to engage the students in so many ways with so many programs. If that creates a bureaucracy, I don't think it's a major detriment to the services we're trying to provide. I hope that's not the case at Texas Tech. I don't think it is.
One of the things I had suggested one time was that I'd hoped all of the higher ed folks at some point would sort of engage with like the best of the best training of the hotel industry. You know, the hospitality when you go to a really nice hotel or a restaurant that's really focused on the customer, you leave there sort of saying, wow, everyone was so nice. They said something nice to me on the way in, on the way out. They asked to help me. They were always around, attentive to my stuff. And to me, that's hard to do, but if you can pull off that culture, if you feel like when you come on campus that faculty and administrators are saying hello to students, or smiling, or reaching out, or sincere in trying to help a student, to me, that's when I go on a campus and I sense that, it's very different than many campuses I go on. And to me, that's one of those things that I hope our leadership can sort of start that sort of a culture, because I think that gets to what President Reed is saying, is that ultimately this is individual, and sure, there is individual responsibility on behalf by the student, and they've got to step up and get themselves to the finish line. But we got to make sure that it was not because of they didn't get there because there was some barrier that we all put in their place.
All right, well, President Skubanek, President Trouth, Chairman Branch, and President Reed, thanks for coming.